Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now let the stories begin. Hi, everybody. So excited because today is a first in the history of this show, Celebration of You. And when I say first, it is the first time that I personally am hosting an incredible guest that has actually been instrumental in the work that I have personally done to heal and come through some trauma of many, many years ago. And I just feel like, for everybody that out there listens, and I thank you for everyone all over the world that listens to this show. This show is a nudge from above, and your comments and the stories we share that make a difference mean so much. And that is why I feel, as you all know, when we are transparent and authentic, not only do we heal, but we help others heal. So this beautiful human being that I was blessed to come to know this past summer, so it was about August. And again, I always say serendipity. When you're open and ready, be ready for what the universe will bring you. And through some dear friends and a crazy conversation, I was introduced to the guest that I'm about to celebrate because I want every human being out there to open their mind to the possibilities of what can happen when you're ready to truly heal in ways that maybe we've never ever entertained or been open to. So on that note, how is that for an intro? Tom DeLano, my new friend and somebody that's helped me heal. Hi, my friend.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me, Holly. This is a wonderful introduction.
Well, I am beyond thrilled. As I told you, I can't still get over the journey of what you and I went through together over the last, it was around 5 or 6 months. And to know the story of how you have become immersed and passionate about this. So I think instead of me talking, I want people to hear your wonderful, soothing voice and take us through the journey, because I am going to brag. You were a very successful businessman, management consultant for years. So what you're about to hear is somebody that took a huge leap of faith and dramatically changed the course of your life because it all resulted in your home being burglarized. Right?
Yeah. So it was January of 2014, Martin Luther King holiday celebration. My kids were off school. I was not working. And it was a very significant event. I have fortunate enough to have a coach house that has my office on the second floor. I was out in my office with my 6-year-old son, and I had left the back door unlocked as we were out in our garage. We were out in the garage for about an hour, and we walked back in to find that somebody had been in our home. And as I went into shock, my 6-year-old son said, "Dad, call 911." And I looked at him and I said, "That's a really good idea." And as the story unfolded, somebody had come into our home. They had been in every kid's bedroom. They had taken money from the piggy banks of the kids. And we all were in a very significant place of fear, shock, worry, unsafe. We slept that night together, all of us, all 5 of us in one room. And it was a life-changing event. At that time, I traveled every week for work. I routinely would fly in the United States 100 trips a year. And so I wasn't really active. I was around on the weekends, but in the week I was gone. And so as we tried to adjust after this event, one of my children was having very severe PTSD. He could not go from the kitchen to the bathroom, which was connected. He couldn't go from the kitchen to the family room because there was a wall and he couldn't see around the wall. He was afraid somebody was in the other room. He couldn't go upstairs. He couldn't go downstairs. We had to keep the closet door open with the light on so he could sleep because he was afraid that somebody was in his closet. He was 9 years old.
Wow.
And we tried a lot of things. We tried talk therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, and we tried diet. We tried to be with him, and we didn't really get a lot of results. And after 6 months of trying, and realizing that every time I traveled, it was like a bomb would go off for him, I looked at my 9-year-old and I looked at my bank account. And the choice was easy.
Thank you.
And so I left to help him. I didn't know how. But I knew if I didn't try, there really wasn't a size of bank account that would help change things. So I left the corporate world and embarked on a journey to help him. And I'm a mathematician by training. I'm a business person. I worked in market research. I worked with executives, CEOs, presidents, senior management teams, going through data and making business decisions. And I figured, I don't know how to help him exactly. I don't know what the tool is. I know the things we've tried haven't worked. But I know that if I take my skills of research and study and apply them to this, I've got a better chance of helping him. And so I started to do all kinds of traditional approaches, alternative approaches. I was desperate. I really wanted to help him. Some things were much further out on the alternative plane. They were a little bit more spiritually based. I wasn't a particularly spiritual person at that time, but I was desperate. And so I went and had my brain scanned.
You did?
With some,
I don't know
with
this
some,
part. Yeah.
Yeah. So with a QEEG, which measures your electrical activity, because being a linear mathematician, if this thing I'd go study would work, which was alternative, I wanted some proof. And so I did the brain map. I went off, I did some alternative study and learning. I felt a change in me as a result of the work. I went back and had my brain scanned again, and I could see the new neural pathways that had opened up, and I could see that my brain was functioning differently on screen to match what was already going on inside my head and body, where things were starting to shift. And so I continued to explore and study, and I finally got to the point where I felt comfortable in my learning that I could work with my son. And so I tried it, and I still remember sitting with him in his bedroom at night. The lights were on in his closet. The doors were open, and we went through a process that I now call memory reconsolidation. It's a scientific term. It exists out there. It's how our brains function. I didn't have that language at the time, but I went through the steps I had learned, and it worked. I didn't realize it had worked at the time, but it worked. He went to bed. He woke up the next morning. He walked out of our back door out to our garage, which is separate from our house. He grabbed his ice skates and he walked down to the ice rink to skate.
Oh my goodness.
And my wife
He couldn't even walk from the bedroom to the bathroom.
Correct. And my wife and I looked at each other as if we were on candid camera. Like, what just happened? Did our son just do that? That's not believable. And it was a shock, quite honestly. It wasn't believable. It's almost as if we felt like somebody had played a joke on us, because the shift was so significant for him. And then he started sleeping with his closet door closed and the lights out. And he walked around the house by himself. And it's still, as I tell the story, it's still not believable to me.
Well, it doesn't seem believable, other than I've now worked with you to know this is
right.
Believable. And yet to hear the story in detail, like I knew about it, but not to this granular level. To sit there, it's almost like, I'm going to say the word, it's almost like he was hypnotized. The fact that he could get up, walk, go get his skates, right? You're like, You guys were hypnotized. I mean, you were like, this is not real.
Yeah, it really was an experience that was not a real experience. It was nothing we had ever experienced in our life prior to that.
And how long after the burglary and all of the work you did to just immerse yourself in this, did this day happen? Like, give us time frame.
Yeah, it was about a year from the time of the burglary to interesting talk about, timing and serendipity. I believe it was, I can't remember if it was the week before or the week after. I'd have to go back and look at my calendar. I was at I'm in a business club in Chicago, and we were at a meeting of our group, and my partner at the time had turned me on to a book. And in that book, it led me to the path of this alternative thing.
Really?
Yeah. And I read the book and I thought, oh, wow, this is pretty fascinating. And then I read about how you could do the work of the book. And I was like, that's fascinating, but not believable. And that came into my space inside of 7 days of the home being burglarized.
Oh my goodness. I've got the goosies.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
So my son and I look back on that burglary as a wonderful event in our lives, which certainly, as you could hear the emotion of the event itself, it's still obviously in me, right? It's in my being of that, how challenging and traumatic that was. And yet we look back on it and say, could you imagine if the house didn't get burglarized? Like, we wouldn't know about any of this. And we wouldn't, he and I work together on different things when things come up in life. And I now all of a sudden do something different.
Yeah, well, now, if it wasn't for that, and I mean, you know me, I always say it's the miracle in this mess, but the blessing, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing for people everywhere, right? And I mean, what ended up happening, and correct me if I'm wrong, but then, like you never thought you'd be doing this for other people. You did it for your son. And
Correct.
then family and friends started asking you about things. Is that right? Is that kind of how this journey started?
Yeah. Yeah, it's exactly it. And it was really friends and family and experimenting, because I didn't know exactly when it would work and when it wouldn't work. And sometimes it didn't work. And I always hold the space for people that we're just going to try. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. And if it works, that person's not good or bad. I'm not good or bad. And if it doesn't work, that person's not good or bad, and I'm not good or bad. It's a technique and a tool, and it works for many people, and it doesn't work for all. So it was friends and family. And then it got a little bit broader as the friends and family started referring other people. And by the time that I got to 3 people removed, so if I worked with a friend or a family member and they referred someone, so that would be the second person. And if that person referred someone, that's what I would call 3 people. I was like, okay, this is working, and maybe I'll start a business. And right now, I'm 8 people removed is the farthest part, extension of the branch, where I'll start with 1 and they referred to number 2 and number 2 referred to number 3, and you can count it all the way out to 8. And so that to me is, that's evidence that it's working for definitely, a group of people.
I'm laughing. Can you hear me smiling? Because the mathematician in you just came out. And when I got to 3 people removed, and I was like, oh my God, the mathematician's coming out. And then when you go, and then I got to 8, I was like, I can see you with the wheels going, right? And mathematically, you're like, well, we're on to something. And what I love, and I have to just say this, and I don't want anyone to miss this, because everybody that knows me, and you do too, Tom, when we are truly doing what I call our soul's highest calling and doing something to make a difference in this world, you will have no idea how big and how far it will go. Mm-hmm. And you never imagined when you opened that book 7 days later, and then when the whole burglary, right? And then your son healing, that you would be a gift. And when you think about, so where am I in the numbers? So I heard about you through some of our dear friends, and I'm going to tell everybody we got to go here, Tom, because this is, sure. You get to tell my story too, to other potential clients, because it was kind of crazy. And we're sitting actually in the wine country with some of our best friends who happens to be friends and clients of yours, who I didn't know this, right? So we're sitting there talking, and something came up, and I said, I don't know, we were joking about things that make us anxious. And I looked at them, and my husband knows this. I said, it's crazy. And I'm not afraid to tell people now at my age, I have so much anxiety. I can get on a stage and speak to thousands. I cannot get on an escalator. And I travel extensively, even in airports, if I can't hold on with both hands on, getting on and getting off. And I've been known to have to juggle all my bags. And if I can't do it, I will find the nearest elevator. Uh-huh. I think I sometimes go, wow, that's just crazy. Like, put me on a stage in front of 10,000. I never have nerves. I stand there and start shaking when I look at an escalator. And this conversation, this friend of ours said, as crazy as it sounds, I had a situation and had some trauma and never realized the anxiety I was having. Can I introduce you to a friend and somebody I've been working with, Tom? So I was like, oh, please do. Well, that was last summer. And I don't know, Tom, I don't even know how crazy to explain this, but the gift you gave me was, and I want everybody to hear this, and you kind of said it, but brain reconsolidation and the work you're doing, this is really powerful. And I think that you have to be somebody that wants to welcome this, and you're open to doing this, because this is not like repeating hash talk therapy. And what I thought would happen is that I would go back to my really bad abusive situation that happened in my life, right? Where I had been beaten and everything. And that's not what happened. Uh-huh. And I can't explain what you did, but it's all the techniques, and we did it via Zoom, right? We see each other. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. But in the very first session, do you want to tell it? Like,
Sure.
Yeah, you tell it, because I still can't believe this came out.
So over the course of my learning, which is an ongoing, the wonderful thing about this is there's always new things that show up as I work with people. And one of the things that was brought into my space was I learned about brain development and when different parts of the brain begin to form when we're in utero in the womb, and how parts of our brain store memory in order to help us survive. And that our thinking autobiographical portion of our brain, what most people refer to as the prefrontal cortex and executive function, begins to develop around age 2 or 3. But that this other memory, this implicit memory, this long-term memory, this body memory is coming to life in utero. And as when you and I did the work, I was early in my knowledge of this. And I think I had asked you, I had inquired with you in the typical techniques I had used, which was, had you ever had an adverse experience around an escalator? Had you ever, fallen or seen somebody? And the answer was no. And so we were going to perhaps explore if something happened in utero.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
This is the piece I'm not remembering exactly, so I need your help. Did we work with it and then you found out?
No.
No. Okay.
This is
you found out and then we worked with it.
Yes, because you asked me, and I'll never forget,
Yep.
I wrote down some notes because you said, "Are your parents both still alive?" And I said, "Yes." And you said, do you know if maybe when you were either still in your mother's womb or within your 6 months? Oh, what came out is you asked me, was there anything that you knew? And I said, well, I started having seizures when I was 6 months old.
Yes.
And they said they were from fevers. And I was put on phenobarbital till I was like 8 years old. And you explained to me that actually, based on the brain, that's not the case. There's probably some trauma that happened. And that's when you said, can you talk to your parents? Can you find out, do you know if maybe they were in a car accident when you were in the womb, or did that happen maybe after when you were a baby in the car? And I said to you, well, what's crazy? This was last August. It was our first session. And I said, I'm actually going to be seeing my mother in 2 weeks in Texas because she'd had some heart issues. Just planned that trip last minute. And I'm going to be seeing my father in early September. He's coming here. I'm not going to do this conversation on the phone. I want to see them both and ask them this. And it was fascinating because when I came back to the next session with you, 2 profound things had happened. One of which was my mother said, both my parents said no, there'd been no trauma. It was the fever that caused my seizure. But my mother said she vividly remembers being 9 months pregnant on an escalator going down and saw a child fall and the shoelaces get dragged into, and she went into a sheer panic and thought she was going to have a baby right there on the escalator. That was what happened. When then I came and told you, and you said you were in utero when this fear began.
Right. Which then connected the dots for the body's response, which in your case was seizures, but it could have responded in any way because your body was reacting to that trauma that occurred in the 9th month. And so,
it was crazy.
It was crazy.
It was crazy. And we did a few techniques, the process that you do that, I truly can't explain it. It's so simple and yet it's so profound. And I still use techniques you've given me for the vagus nerve, right? And what was crazy is another thing came out of that same conversation, because you took me to a place that came up in the brain work to when I was in second grade, and not understanding why that was a time that I never could remember it being a time. So I asked my parents, and I remember I had a foster sister. That's all I knew in second grade. And she was in my room, put in my room. So then you said, find out from your parents, ask them about your foster sister. Well, for everyone listening, in my early 50s now, we were raised thinking we had a foster sister until I had the conversation with both my parents and found out she was not a foster sister. She was a 15-year-old that had been in juvenile prison and was getting moved to a mental hospital because she had been part of a assailant to a murder and drug addict and prostitute. And so my parents felt the calling they reached out and she could come live with us. So we found out I didn't have a foster sister. I had a convicted felon, and she was it. So all of that said, we'll keep that one to the side, but that's why I want people to hear this. Literally, Tom, you and I did from August to November. I mean, not counting the conversations we'd have around business, because that was fun. I maybe did 4 sessions. Would you say?
Yeah. Yes.
4? Yeah. And I haven't even gotten the chance, because I'm going to get emotional. So I travel so much, and now, of course, I'm loving this pause because I'm not bouncing on planes and running all over city to city. But last November, December, I remember vividly, as crazy as this sounds to everybody. Oh man, I'm getting emotional. I spent my life being petrified of getting on escalators, never knowing, right? And feeling something was wrong with me. And as simple as that was, and having gone through a lot of other trauma in my life, I remember going in an airport and jumping on an escalator without holding on. And I got emotional. I go, oh my God, I did it. I didn't even realize what I was doing. And then I jumped right off. And I remember the next time I was on a trip with Steve, was with me, my husband, and I go, watch this, look at me. And I literally am like a little kid now, jumping on and off escalators. Yeah. I just want people to know that, and Tom, the gift you gave me, I'm willing to work. I wanted to do the work, and I was open to knowing that I know the brain's powerful. And really, you just help us work through a process of resetting the brain to reconfigure that memory.
Yeah.
And I feel like a new person. I remember that time we talked, and I go, I'm like screaming on Zoom with my hands up in the air going, I just feel like, and there's so many other things. It's helped me release the need that I felt to take care of everybody in the world. It's not my job anymore, and I don't have the responsibility. I'm not responsible for other people's emotions, their feelings, their safety. And I mean, there's a lot of other work we've done that's been liberating. But as I sit here with tears thanking you, I knew I needed to share this with the world and people that listen to know we all have our stuff. And this year was a commitment to take care of Holly, and look at what we did, Tom. And if you hadn't been burglarized to help your son,
I know, I
wouldn't have this gift of healing.
I know.
Oh, well, there we go. We've both cried. And so what do we, I mean, I want to end this with, everybody's journey is different, right? You could have people that have maybe 1 or 2 sessions, and that's all they needed. And other people are choosing to work with you for a long time, right? Tell us a little bit about that for people listening.
Yeah, sure. So it is unique to every person, and where things begin, we never know, right? As you said, when we got connected, you thought we would end up working on the significant abuse that you'd had in your life. We never did.
No, never even, it never came up.
It never even came up. And that's the wonderful part of the process, is that we go through the discovery phase to see what lives inside the mind and the brain and the body, and it communicates. And when we listen, we can find the things. The body is designed to keep us alive.
Mm.
right? And when we
Mhm.
go through trauma, it's the body's job to keep us alive. So it's going to enact defenses
Mhm.
to make sure that we live. And those are really important defenses to have in place. For you as that little baby, it was really important for you to protect yourself in some form or fashion.
Mm. Yeah.
Sometimes we find that in the first session. You were fortunate enough, your parents were still alive. They could share that knowledge, that conversation with you. Um, Sometimes people's parents aren't alive or they can't have that conversation. The amazing thing is that the body still remembers. I worked with someone this morning who'd never been told that they had the cord around their neck during birth.
Oh.
And yet you could see them put their hands to their neck as they were going through the memory of it.
Wow.
And so sometimes it takes 1 or 2 sessions. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4. It's really a function of the discovery phase. As you said, the change process is quite easy and simple, which is somewhat counterintuitive.
Right.
Um, but it's really the discovery phase that where we invest the time. And I come to the space of this is if we can find the thing that you want to work with and make the change and we're done in 1 session, then we're done. There's not a need on my side to continue to do sessions or to do work. When people get what they seek, then our work is complete. Sometimes it takes many more sessions. Sometimes the trauma that people have been through is so ingrained that it's not safe to be safe.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And it's scary and sad when we as human beings sometimes discover it's not safe to be safe.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that takes a little bit more work. And I've got access to some other wonderful tools that I've picked up in my learning that help the body to be safe. Um, they're scientifically proven, going back to my mathematician,
Here we go. I love it.
that they help the body to calm and finally be safe. And so when you do the protocol, it's called the Safe and Sound Protocol, which was created by Stephen Porges. And Stephen Porges is the person who created the polyvagal theory, which ties into the vagus nerve. Sometimes some bodies, some human beings need that safe and sound protocol to calm their body enough to make it safe to work with the trauma. And so that takes a little bit more. It's that particular protocol is a 5-day listening protocol to help calm the body. And as you do work, it's an intensive week, but we work all 5 days. And as the body gets safer in its physiology, it becomes safer to reconsolidate the memory, because the body doesn't want to let go of the trauma because it needs it in there to keep it alive.
Yes.
So it's not until the body can feel safe sometimes that it's okay to reconsolidate that. Your trauma on the escalator isn't an ever-present danger in your life currently. Getting on that escalator didn't mean you were going to die in sort of the traditional cognitive, people ride escalators all the time. That's not a common ongoing trauma. So it was a little bit easier for your body to transition. But if people are in environments that aren't safe, if they're in abusive relationships, it's not safe to have the body feel safe.
Well, you actually worked with me. We almost did that 5-day intense because
Yes.
what came out about session 2 or 3 was that I had not felt safe since I was in second grade my whole life.
Yeah.
And we did some other techniques that ended up life altering, liberating, right? That it's like this, I can't even explain it. It's like this magical shift of how I feel now. I have never, ever loved Holly as much as I do now.
Mm.
And I can't even explain it other than I don't question it. I'm open. I'm always open to growing, right? And that probably made a difference because you're like, I don't think we need to do this intense 5 days. You're like, we were talking about it. And then you're like, I think and that's the thing is every human being's different.
Yes.
And that's what makes this such a gift, Tom. And I know that people are going to be hearing this and they're going to want to reach out. So mathematically, I'm going to laugh and go, make sure to tell Tom you heard him on my show so he can track the number. Because now I want to know. But honestly, tell people how they can reach out to you if they want to know more and learn more or an experience working with you.
Yeah. So I have a website called bioalignment.com. And on that website, you can send an inquiry through to me. I also have my phone number on that website that if people want to reach out via phone, that's another way to get connected. And we take it from there. We generally have a conversation to find out what the person's hoping to accomplish and figure out a path forward from there. But the website or the phone number on the website would be two wonderful ways to connect.
And he means it. Reach out. He will most likely do a quick, have a first call with you to get to know you. And I just want to reiterate, this is a choice. This may not be for everybody, but what I learned that I want everybody to know and why I had to share this with so many people, and I've referred people to Tom, is because, Tom, you taught me about how in the vagus nerve in the brain, but so deep back in the brain, there are those memories that are so deep that we aren't consciously aware of them, but they're living within us. And and nothing against great therapy. Therapy's there for a reason, but sometimes it's just re-talking about the same crap over and over. How do you ever get rid of it? Right? So to me, this was so powerful because it wasn't that let's keep re-talking about the same crap all over again. It was let's reconsolidate your memory and let's get you to feel like a new person. And that's what I did. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, my friend. Well, I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for giving me this gift this last year and for choosing to spend your life doing something you never imagined, but you're making a difference. So it's mathematically, I'm just one, but I know it's a ripple effect.
It is. And thank you so much for having me and getting to share our collective story on this. It's truly wonderful.
Well, thank you, and have a marvelous rest of your day, my friend. Thank you.
I will. Same to you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag #YourStoryMatters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.